Ever get that nagging feeling? You're putting in the work, your team's busy, but are you really hitting the mark?
Mm,
Is your organization like truly as effective as it could be? Is it maximizing its potential in today's world?
yeah, that's a big question.
Well, today we're planning to crack open a framework that can bring that whole picture into much sharper focus.
Absolutely. We're diving deep into the competing values framework. You'll probably hear it, called the CVF.
CVF, right?
And look, this isn't some, flash in the pan idea. It's a really solid model
Yeah.
built on, over 2 decades of research,
Yeah, at least.
looking into what really drives organizational success and shapes those company cultures, and importantly, its value. It's been confirmed again and again,
And for those of you listening, navigating, the daily grind of running a business, trying to innovate, trying to grow without getting totally lost in the weeds.
which is easy to do.
Oh, absolutely. This framework is kind of like finding a shortcut. It helps you understand the fundamental forces, the real dynamics inside your organization. The ones that either push you forward or kind of hold you back.
Exactly. And we're not talking abstract theory here, are we? This stuff has real-world impact.
Definitely.
And today, we're looking at two really valuable resources that highlight this: the Competing Values Assessment Overview and the Ebony Innovates Assessment 2025.
Right. Those are our guides for this.
In both of these, they offer a genuinely positive and practical perspective on how the CVF can be used for success right now in today's business world.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to really get why this competing values framework is so crucial for businesses today and highlight the very real, tangible advantages it gives organizations that actually use it. Okay, let's unpack this thing. What exactly is the competing values framework?
Okay, so at its core, the CVF recognizes that inside every single organization, there are these four fundamental values, and they often pull in different directions.
Competing values, hence the name.
Exactly. Collaborate, create, compete, and control. Think of them like four essential ingredients, maybe.
Okay.
And the way an organization balances them, how much weight it puts on each one, that's what shapes its character, its culture, and ultimately its effectiveness.
And it's really leadership's job to manage those tensions, right? To
Right.
decide where the resources, time, money, focus actually go.
Precisely. That balancing act influences everything.
Right.
Day-to-day culture, how the company innovates, how it grows. Even the Financial Times recognized this as a pretty significant framework for understanding organizations.
That is quite an endorsement.
It is. And what's really fascinating is how these competing values relate to each other. Imagine like a compass.
Okay, a company.
On one axis, the horizontal one, you've got this tension between being internally focused, people-oriented.
Right, collaborate and control would sit there.
Exactly. And on the other side, an external focus looking out at the market, the organization as a whole.
So create and compete over there. Got it. What about the other axis, the vertical one?
That axis shows the tension between flexibility, change, adaptation on one end.
That sounds like collaborate and create territory,
You got it. And stability, control, predictability on the other end.
which leaves compete and control.
Right. So this setup means each of the four values has, natural partners, quadrants that are complementary, but also quadrants that are in direct contrast, pushing and pulling.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the competing values assessment overview, one of our sources today, mentions the assessment itself looks at three key aspects of an organization. What were those again?
Yeah, it dives into three critical dimensions. First, the purposes, like the future outcomes the company wants, its aspirations.
So where are we going?
Exactly.
Wow.
Then the practices, what's happening now, the current culture, the processes, how things actually get done.
The how we do things around here.
Uh-huh. And finally, the people, the individual leadership styles, the approaches people take.
Right. Purposes, practices, people.
And what's really powerful, and the research backs this up strongly, is that when those three things, purposes, practices, and people are aligned, organizations just tend to be much more effective, much more successful.
So it's not enough for a company to just say it values innovation, for example.
Not at all.
Its culture, its processes, its leaders' actions, they all need to reflect that value.
Precisely. And when that alignment clicks, when it happens around a clear, shared definition of what effectiveness actually means for them,
Yeah.
that's what the overview calls the innovation sweet spot.
Yeah.
That's where they can really unlock their potential and achieve the growth they're aiming for.
The sweet spot. I like that. It implies finding that right balance.
Exactly. By understanding and, importantly, agreeing on their core definition of success, organizations can focus their energy much more effectively. Okay, shall we dig into each of these four quadrants a bit more?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start with collaborate. Often shown in yellow, you said.
That's right, collaborate, or the yellow quadrant. This one focuses internally on people, but it also values flexibility and change.
So what does that look like in practice? What are the hallmarks?
Well, the collaborate quadrant really prioritizes things like teamwork, cohesion, high morale. There's usually a strong investment in people through HR, training, development.
So very people-centric.
Very much so. Leaders here are often facilitators, mentors, team builders. The key drivers are things like commitment, open communication, developing employees. Think of maybe a strong nonprofit or a family-like company culture.
Okay.
That's often a clan culture, as the model calls it. The underlying belief, if you develop your people and earn their commitment, effectiveness will follow.
So what are the big advantages then for a company that really leans into this yellow collaborate zone?
Well, in a collaborative-focused place, people genuinely feel valued. That's huge. Leadership often gets nurtured from within the ranks. And there's a real focus on long-term development, not just short-term results.
Investing in human capital pays off, essentially.
That's the core belief, yes. Human capital yields success.
And how does this show up in, say, the numbers? What kind of metrics would you track to see if you're strong and collaborate?
Good question. Metrics that often stand out in this quadrant include things like sales per employee, showing a productive, supported workforce.
Interesting.
Also, the investment in training per employee, high rates of employee retention, people stick around, and of course, measures of effective teamwork.
Okay. Now, you mentioned these quadrants interact. How does this yellow collaborate approach add value when it's working with the other styles, the other quadrants?
Right, because no organization is just one color, usually. So when collaborate works with, say, a control-focused red team,
The process people.
yeah, the yellow's strength is their commitment to teaching and mentoring. They help ensure processes are actually understood and followed effectively, not just imposed.
Okay, that makes sense.
When working with a create-focused green team, the innovators that nurturing learning focus from yellow can really help turn those sometimes wild ideas into tangible growth.
So they help ground the innovation.
In a supportive way, yes.
Yeah.
And even with a hard-driving, compete-focused blue team, yellow's emphasis on building organizational learning can actually create a more sustainable competitive advantage over time.
Fascinating. That paints a really clear picture of collaborate. Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about the create quadrant, often linked with green.
All right, create or green.
This one also values flexibility and change, like collaborate, but it looks outward towards the organization and its environment. Tell us about this one.
So the create quadrant is all about dynamism, adaptability. Structures here are often more organic, maybe flatter. Loosely coupled is the term sometimes used.
That's rigid.
Definitely. Leaders here are your innovators, your entrepreneurs, your visionaries, the people thinking way outside the box.
Right.
The key value drivers are things like innovative outputs, new products, new services, embracing transformation, and maintaining agility as an organization. Think of a classic tech startup vibe, maybe.
Yeah, where things change fast.
Exactly. Roles might be fluid, experimentation is encouraged. The model calls this an adhocracy culture. And the core belief is that constant innovation, vision, and constant change are what lead to effectiveness.
So the big wins here are probably around generating those breakthrough ideas and being, quick on your feet to jump on new opportunities.
That's it, exactly.
Hmm.
Organizations strong in create often see bold, sometimes risky ideas actually materialize. Their flexibility, their openness to novelty, these become huge advantages. And they tend to have a long-term view, always scanning the horizon.
Looking for the next big thing.
Always.
And what kind of metrics would tell you you've got a strong green thing going on?
You'd likely be looking at things like significant growth in total sales year over year, a high number of new products or services launched,
Okay.
and probably a pretty substantial chunk of your overall spending going towards R&D, research and development.
Makes sense. And how does this drive for innovation, this green energy, play out when interacting with the other quadrants?
Well, when a create team partners up with a collaborate yellow team, that nurturing approach we talked about from yellow, it can really help turn those creative risks into actual manageable growth projects.
Provides some support structure.
Right. With a compete-focused blue team, the green team's excitement and vision for new ventures can help attract the capital and resources needed to bring those ideas to market successfully.
Beats the buy-in.
Exactly. Now, working with a control-oriented red team, that can be interesting. The green focus on the big picture can be inspiring, but
But
aligning on risk tolerance and process might need some careful navigation, let's put it that way.
I can imagine. Okay, really interesting stuff on Create. Let's turn our attention now to Compete, the blue quadrant. This one also looks outward, like Create, but it favors a more structured, results-driven approach. What's the key here?
Right. The competer blue quadrant is laser-focused on achieving results in the external environment, driving profit, gaining market share, winning against the competition through rational, focused action.
Very goal-oriented.
Extremely. Leaders here are typically your hard drivers, your competitors, your producers. They're focused on output. The key value drivers are things like market share, hitting goals, profitability.
So think of maybe a really aggressive sales organization or a company totally focused on beating its rivals.
That's often the archetype, yes.
Yeah.
It's called a market culture in the framework. And the core belief is pretty straightforward. Aggressively competing and focusing intensely on customers are the keys to winning. End of story.
So the advantages here would be that intense focus on the customer and pushing hard for tangible outcomes like profit and market share.
Absolutely. Initiatives in a compete-focused organization are almost always strongly aligned with meeting customer needs and delivering value to shareholders. That emphasis on planning, on execution, often leads to significant short-term gains. Real, immediate value creation.
Gets results quickly.
Often, yes. Lucrative short-term gains can be a hallmark.
And what are some of the metrics that would signal a dominant blue quadrant? What are they measuring?
You might see a strong focus on metrics like the growth rate and economic value added, or EVA,
EVA, okay.
a high overall EVA figure,
Yeah.
and things like time to market for new products or services, getting things out the door fast. It all reflects that emphasis on speed, profitability, and performance in the competitive arena.
Right, winning the race. And how does this competitive energy interact with the others when blue meets green, for instance?
When a compete team works with a create green team, those innovative ideas from green provide the fuel, the new products or services, for blue's competitive initiatives. It's a potentially powerful combo.
Innovation meets execution.
You could say that.
Right.
Partnering with a control-focused red team, that can ensure the clear objectives and, crucially, the efficient resource allocation needed for successful market execution. Red brings the discipline.
Makes sense.
And even when collaborating with a people-focused yellow team, establishing really clear, specific, measurable goals, something blue is good at, can help bridge any potential differences in pace or focus. Gets everyone on the same page, target-wise.
Okay, that covers compete. Last, but definitely not least, we have the control quadrant, often represented in red, you said.
That's right, control or red.
This one swings back to an internal focus, like collaborate, but values stability and process over flexibility. What's crucial in this quadrant?
Control is all about minimizing risk, ensuring consistency, getting the details right. It relies on well-defined processes, clear roles, often within a more stable, perhaps hierarchical structure.
Order and efficiency.
Exactly. The leaders here tend to be your coordinators, your monitors, your organizers, people who make sure the trains run on time, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
The key drivers are efficiency, timeliness, consistency, uniformity.
So maybe like a traditional manufacturing company focused on quality control, or a government agency.
Those are classic examples, yes. The model calls this a hierarchy culture. The fundamental belief here is that control, efficiency, and capable, reliable processes are the foundation of long-term success. Stability matters.
So the strengths here probably lie in making those steady, incremental improvements and maintaining a really high level of quality and reliability, predictability.
Precisely. Organizations anchored in control are often excellent at consistent, gradual improvement. Kaizen, continuous improvement, that sort of thing. That strong emphasis on established procedures leads to high-quality predictability, which are seen as absolutely vital for stability and long-term success.
Less flashy maybe, but solid.
Very solid.
And what metrics would you expect to see highlighted in a red organization? What gets measured?
Key metrics here might include things like high asset turnover, showing efficient use of resources, strong gross profit margins, reflecting good cost control and quality management,
Right.
and maybe a high percentage of on-time deliveries, emphasizing that commitment to reliability and predictability. Doing what you say you'll do, consistently.
Okay. And finally, how does this focus on control and efficiency interact with the other quadrants? Say, control meets collaborate.
When a control-focused red team works with a collaborate yellow team, red's attention to detail and process can actually help refine and improve people-focused initiatives. Makes them more structured, maybe more scalable.
Add some rigor.
Could be, yeah. Partnering with a compete blue team, Red provides the clear operational framework, the efficient systems needed for those market-driven activities. Blue wants to execute quickly.
The backbone for the push.
A good way to put it.
Yeah.
And even when working with a Create Green team, which might seem like an odd pairing,
Yeah.
the red focus on practicality, on feasibility, can help ground some of the more out there, innovative ideas. It asks the tough questions. Can we actually build this? Can we do it reliably? Can we afford it?
Brings a dose of reality.
Sometimes a necessary one, yes.
Wow, okay. This is providing such a clear picture. Understanding these four competing values, collaborate, create, compete, control, and how they kind of pull and push within an organization, it really seems like a powerful tool.
It really is.
But let's get practical. What are some of the specific benefits and, real world applications of actually using the competing values assessment? Both the overview source and the Ebony Innovates one touch on this, right?
They do, and they point to a really wide range of valuable uses. I mean, just at the individual level, it's fantastic for personal development.
So.
Well, for career planning, it helps you understand your own natural tendencies, your own values, and where you might best contribute or where you might need to stretch within an organization's culture.
Okay, self-awareness. And what about for teams?
Oh, huge value for teams. The assessment is brilliant for team development. It can help pinpoint why certain things might be challenging or where productivity could be boosted.
By understanding different styles?
Exactly, by fostering a better understanding and appreciation of those different working styles and values within the team. And it could be a great tool for building a shared vision, getting everyone aligned on common values.
But it sounds like the impact goes even wider, right? To the whole organization?
Absolutely. That's where it gets really strategic. By aggregating the results from across the organization, companies can even benchmark themselves.
Against competitors.
Yeah, against others in their industry, using something called the Competing Values Innovation Index, which is mentioned in the overview.
Innovation index.
Okay, this gives leaders a really powerful snapshot. It shows their company's potential for growth in the market, how they stack up against competitors based on these value profiles. The index can even show how making strategic shifts, maybe leaning more into create or strengthening control, could lead to different growth outcomes.
So it's diagnostic and prescriptive in a way.
It can be, yes. It helps identify where you are and where you might want to go.
And the competing values assessment overview really hammers home that the assessment looks at those three key things we talked about: purposes, practices, and people.
Right.
Specifically in relation to change, innovation, and growth. And then it helps you bring behaviors and practices into line with the results you actually want.
That's such a crucial point. It's not just about slapping a label on your culture, like, oh, we're a clan culture.
No.
It's about deeply understanding how that dominant culture, plus the way things really get done, the practices, the motivations and styles of your people, how all that either helps or hinders you in achieving your big strategic goals.
Alignment again.
It always comes back to alignment.
Now, the Ebony Innovates Assessment 2025, that's presented as a specific tool people can use to explore this alignment personally and for their organization. According to that source, what are some key advantages of actually taking part in that specific assessment?
Yeah, the Ebony Innovates Assessment 2025 document is very positive about the benefits. It explicitly highlights that participating helps individuals and organizations first gain real clarity on their dominant culture.
Okay, know thyself.
Right. Second, improve team collaboration, specifically by appreciating those diverse values we've been discussing. And third, ultimately drive organizational growth by pinpointing where strategic focus and alignment are most needed.
So it's positioned as a real catalyst for positive change.
Very much so. A positive catalyst for improvement.
And how does the scoring actually work in that Ebony Innovates version? How do you figure out, am I more blue or yellow?
It uses a point-based system. Respondents are given different statements, and they have to allocate points, usually a fixed total per statement, based on how well that statement reflects their view or their organization.
So you're forced to make trade-offs, like in real life.
Exactly. A statement that strongly reflects, say, the compete quadrant would get more points for blue, fewer for the others. Then you just add up the points for each quadrant across all the questions. The highest total shows your dominant orientation, or the organization's dominant orientation.
Pretty straightforward. And it looks like the Ebony Innovates assessment even suggests these tailored screen displays based on your dominant quadrant, like organizer for control, achiever for compete.
Yes. Innovator for create, and community builder for collaborate.
That's neat. Gives you a quick handle on the result.
It does. It makes it immediate and relatable.
Hmm.
And actually, the Ebony Innovates document goes a step further. It suggests potential career paths that might align well with each quadrant's profile based on the detailed feedback.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for example, it might suggest roles in operations or quality assurance for someone strong in control, sales or business development for compete, maybe tech startups or R&D for create, and HR or community management for collaborate.
That's incredibly practical advice coming out of an assessment.
It aims to be, yeah,
Yeah.
connecting the framework to tangible career direction.
And going back to the competing values assessment overview, it mentions that the CVF plays well with other organizational tools like Myers-Briggs or DISC. Why is that important? Why mention that?
I think it's important because it shows the CVF isn't trying to be the only answer. It's not a standalone silver bullet solution.
Right.
Instead, it can act as this really powerful overarching framework for understanding the underlying dynamics that might be revealed by those other tools, which often focus more on individual personality or behavioral style.
So it adds context.
Exactly. It provides a richer, more comprehensive picture. You get the individual piece from, say, DISC, and the organizational context and intentions from the CVF. It offers a more nuanced perspective when used together.
Okay, so let's say an individual or maybe a leadership team has done the assessment. They've got a better handle on their CVF profile. Now what? What are the concrete action steps they can take? The overview source gives some guidance here, right?
It does. It lays out a pretty clear sequence. First, obviously, take the assessment to get that baseline understanding.
Step one.
Step two, use the framework to really inventory those three key areas. Your people, their styles, team dynamics, your practices, current culture, processes, competencies, and your purposes, desired outcomes, strategic goals, core values.
Okay, inventory done. Then what?
Then map those results onto the four quadrants. Get that visual picture of where things stand right now.
See the balance or imbalance.
Precisely. And this next step is crucial. Key leaders need to sit down and analyze those results in context. Look at the external environment, customer demands, market shifts, what competitors are doing.
The real world.
The real world.
Yeah.
And based on that analysis, then define the strategic objectives. What do we need to achieve? Where do we need to shift our focus?
Okay, strategy set. Now action.
Plan action.
Yeah.
Plan the changes needed, and this could be at the personal level, the team level, and the organizational level. Decide specifically, what do we need to do more of? What do we need to do less of? What should we stop doing entirely? What needs improvement, and what should stay the same?
That stop doing part is often the hardest.
It really is. But the overview emphasizes recognizing that to start new things, you almost always have to scale back or stop others. Resources aren't infinite. You have to make choices.
Makes sense. And the overview even includes some tables, doesn't it? To help teams figure out specific actions based on which quadrant they want to strengthen.
Yes, exactly. Tables 10 through 13 in the Competing Values Assessment overview are really helpful here. They give concrete examples of actions that can boost, say, community and knowledge in the collaborate quadrant,
Okay.
or innovation and growth for compete.
Hmm.
Create, speed and profits for compete, and efficiency and quality for control. They provide tangible ideas to translate the framework into actual practice.
Like little action menus for each quadrant's priorities.
Kind of, yeah. Practical starting point.
And there's even a template, a taking action template to help organize all this planning.
Right. Again, Table 14 offers a really structured template. It helps you map out the key elements for any change initiative. What are the deliverables? What's the timeline? Who owns it? What are the specific action steps? What behaviors need to change? How will we measure success? And crucially, what specific practices need to start and which need to stop.
Very thorough.
It forces you to think through the implementation details. And then Table 15 provides a worked example showing how you might actually fill out that template for a specific strategic goal.
Super helpful to see it filled in. Okay, this has been an incredibly valuable deep dive into the competing values framework. Really illuminating. So to try and wrap this up, what's the core message? What's the main takeaway for our listeners today?
I think the core message, drawing from both the Competing Values Assessment Overview and the Ebony Innovates Assessment 2025, is that this framework offers a genuinely powerful and, importantly, a positive lens.
Positive.
A positive way to understand and ultimately improve how effective your organization is. By recognizing these competing values are inherent, they're always there.
Not judging them, but understanding them.
Exactly.
Oh.
And by strategically managing them, navigating those tensions, businesses can really foster innovation and achieve sustainable growth, which is what everyone's after in today's competitive world.
And for businesses listening right now, the advantages seem pretty clear. Getting better alignment between your goals, your culture, and your people. Gaining a clearer picture of where you stand competitively. And maybe most importantly, getting a set of actionable steps you can actually take to drive real improvement. It's not just theory.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's very practical. So maybe here's a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on.
Okay, leave us with something provocative.
Consider those 4 key values again. Collaborate, create, compete, control. Which one do you feel intuitively has the strongest pull inside your organization right now? Where does the energy naturally flow?
Hmm.
And then ask yourself the tougher question. Is that the right balance? Is that specific emphasis truly propelling you towards your most important long-term goals for innovation, for growth in the world as it is today?
Is your current default setting serving your future?
Well put. And what new possibilities, what untapped potential might even a small, deliberate shift in that balance unlock for you, for your team, for your entire organization?
Food for thought.
Definitely. We'd strongly encourage you to explore the competing values framework and maybe check out the assessments we've talked about a bit further. It could be quite insightful.